Throughout much of human history, the color red has been associated with the most intense human emotions. And no red gem has a greater prominence of historical significance than the ruby, July's birthstone. It has both the longest connection to human history as well as the shortest, a quandary that we'll touch on momentarily. Today we'll be diving into one of the most precious stones ever recorded in human history. Where did it come from? How does it form? What lore surrounds it? In essence, what makes a ruby a ruby? But first, please consider liking and subscribing for more gem, mineral, and fossil content. And let me know in the comments which corundum mineral you think is better, ruby or sapphire, and why. I'm also very happy to bring you this video's sponsor. It's your boy Ray! I'm kidding, it's me. Raid Shadow Legends would not sponsor me, it's me. I'm the sponsor. One of the core tenets of my channel that I'm trying to solidify is to bring you the very best value that I can. But that translates into my business as well, and at the end of the day, they're basically the same thing. This year I started a Mineral of the Month club, and as it grows, I plan on adding more and more value. My dream with this is to help people create fun starter collections out of unique, fun gems, minerals, and fossils. Some months will be more interesting than others, but if you like shiny baubles, learning about the world we live in, or just want a unique gift for that magpie-brained loved one in your life, this is the subscription service for you. $10 USD a month plus shipping. This is one of the things that allows me to keep giving you all of the fun content that I can, so your support is greatly appreciated. Let's get back to the show. The history of rubies is one mired in mystery, passion, and splendor. The earliest known ruby mine dates back to 2500 BCE in the Mogok region of Myanmar, formerly known as Burma. However, it wasn't until the 1800s CE that rubies became delineated as a corundum. So you can imagine that there may be a large quantity of similar red stones that have held the name ruby at some point in history. A certain historically significant red spinel comes to mind. Those in the business like to call that foreshadowing. So what exactly is a ruby? The traditional gemology perspective states that a ruby is a red, translucent variety of corundum. The name is given to the highest quality red corundums specifically. In more common mineralogical vernacular, the name applies to any red-tinted corundum, which begs the question, what is corundum? Corundums are the crystalline form of aluminum oxide. It can form in various metamorphic rocks as well as in low silica igneous cyanites, and other intrusive events. Sometimes when a corundum forms, trivalent chromium will replace some of the aluminum in its structure, turning the corundum red, making a ruby. That same chromium content is also what makes rubies fluorescent under long-wave ultraviolet lighting. Side note, pink corundum is generally called pink sapphire, and we'll touch on my distaste at the lack of respect other colors of corundum receive when we get to September. It's a thing. But rubies are hard. Harder than differential equations, sporting a 9 out of 10 on the Mohs scale of hardness, with a hexagonal crystal habit. As previously stated, rubies have a rich history in the annals of humankind, even if it's a bit muddled. The word itself is derived from the Latin rubeus, meaning red. In the ancient Indo-Aryan Sanskrit language, ruby was called, Ratnaraj? It translates out to King of Precious Gems. If you've seen other entries in my History of Birthstone series, you'll likely have already guessed that the ruby is one of the 12 stones on the Breastplate of Aaron, or likely was. The word transliterated in Exodus 28:17 as sardius, and that just means precious red stone, but it was likely a ruby. There is an interesting commonality with most of the ancient cultures that prize rubies and people in the metaphysical community today. They treasured it specifically for its similarity to the redness of blood and believed that they held the power of life itself, they being rubies. And that belief transmigrated to today in the form of the modern metaphysical community, the modern claim being that it will promote vitality, strength of heart, etc., 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 things that really do typify blood. An interesting Catholic tradition states that rubies symbolize the blood and purity of Christ, again with the blood. And this may be an absorption of an already existing Hellenistic belief. But it wasn't all blood when it came to rubies. Some medieval European lapidaries promoted rubies as a stone that prevented lust. Finally, an anti-fertility stone on this list. I spoke too soon. Kabbalistic sources, or Kabbalah sources, encouraged women to crush up and drink rubies to enable them to become pregnant. Don't do this, please. Your colon will thank you. Other traditions state that holding one can help a child come to full term. Interesting. The ancient Hindus believed that those who offered the very best rubies to the god Krishna would be granted rebirth as emperors. As previously stated, the earliest ruby mines date back to Myanmar, and those people believed that warriors in possession of rubies would be invincible on the battlefield. However, it wasn't enough just to have the ruby. They had to be... what's the best way to put this? Inserted into the flesh. Again, don't do that. Don't do that. Germ theory was not a thing then. It is now. Don't. Moving on. Like we talked about earlier, rubies were classified as corundums in the 1800s, and as you can imagine, some red stones called rubies were soon found out to be, quote, frauds. And I want to tell you about my very favorite one. Sitting above the Cullinan II diamond on the Imperial State Crown of England is a large, red, irregular gem. This is one of the oldest portions of the crown. It was given to Edward of Woodstock, the Black Prince, in 1367 by the King of Castile in commemoration of the victory of Najera. Legend states that Henry V wore the gem on a crown to the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, and that the gem deflected an otherwise fatal blow to his head. It's been known as the Black Prince's Ruby for hundreds of years. However, upon further inspection and the modern classification of rubies, it became known that this huge portion of the Imperial State Crown is actually a gem-quality spinel. And that spinel likely came from Afghanistan. Still, it's very impressive to say the least. Rubies have been a favorite stone for millennia, but they also have tremendous industrial applications today. For instance, you can thank rubies and their broad light absorption properties for laser technology. The first working laser had a ruby lasing medium and was constructed in 1960. It was a lab-grown ruby for purity, but a ruby nonetheless. Ruby is still used as a lasing medium today sometimes. Fun fact, the first synthetic ruby was made in 1837 by fusing potash alum with a little bit of chromium at high temperatures. Today, synthetic rubies are made with hydrothermal processes that more closely mimic the natural growing conditions. So how do you tell a natural from a synthetic? The imperfections, of course. Naturals will often have numerous flaws, but most importantly, rutile or titanium oxide inclusions called silk. If the gem is flawless, it has a higher chance of being synthetic. These inclusions can be reduced, clarity improved, and color even enhanced with heat treatments, generally at about 1800 degrees Celsius. That's a lot of Celsius. Heat treatment is one thing, but another interesting treatment to look out for is the leaded glass treatment. This takes a low-quality, cloudy, and even fractured ruby and infuses it with leaded glass to improve clarity and make it stable enough to cut. You see this often with faceted stones, and it does greatly affect the value. Again, the best way to spot it is by looking at the inclusions. If you see lines of little bubbles running through portions of the stone, it's likely been filled with leaded glass, and by likely, it pretty much certainly has been. Mineralogically, rubies come in a variety of shades of red, but the most expensive and prized is called pigeon's blood. And here we go again with the blood. But today, the vast majority of rubies still come from Myanmar, but also Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, the United States, and more. In fact, if you live in the United States and want to collect rubies, North Carolina has several localities and public dig areas to choose from, including Mason's Sapphire and Ruby Mine, or Mason's Ruby and Sapphire Mine, Cherokee Mine, Emerald Hollow Mine, and more. Rubies have a special place in human history. Virtuous women have been compared to them, warriors prize them in bizarre and infection-producing fashion, and they allegedly both created and prevented pregnancies. What a value. But what do you think about the ruby? Let me know in the comments, and thank you to all of the Mineral of the Month Club and Patreon members. This video was made possible because of you. Have a great day.